Ego the Living Planet has been shown to counteract/heal those infected by Null, done when he was a baby planet or just like a very young planet. As a young planet, he fought Null alongside Silver Surfer, even giving Surfer some extra power for the fight and the win after to bring the universe back to life. Now that Ego is a much older planet and has grown in power, it's not hard to believe that he could hold his own in a fight against Null. Ego currently seems to outrank Null in energy projection, but not in fighting skills. Ego has proven his battle abilities in fights against Galactus. In one instant, Ego had gone insane, and Galactus didn't even engage before he had help. Null was defeated by being thrown into the sun, as light is his weakness. Ego was also thrown into a sun, but instead of being his end, it actually just made him more powerful since it activated his photosynthetic form of revitalization. Chthon, who knows? Everyone says it different, is an elder god of Earth and the planet's first black magic master. He outranks Null in energy projection too, but not in fighting skills and intelligence. There is an argument that Null would win a fight between the two because some Sims of his have defeated Chthon in the past. However, I think there's more to that story. So Chthon was summoned by Carnage but couldn't be controlled. He was only defeated when Jubilile Van Scotter showed up with the Toxic Sim and her own Darkhold Augmented Sim, and Ray is also Darkhold Augmented. The Darkhold was written by Chthon, so technically he was defeated by Null's creations, but only when two of them were supercharged with magic he created. Whatever that means. Even if he didn't win, he would certainly make the fight interesting. Dormammu is a puzzling case for this. He's held up against Odin and those in comparable power to Galactus. He was once able to take the powers of the entity Eternity and create his own reality. Dormammu's power come from where he lives and rules the dark dimension. When he is in there, it's been established that there is pretty much no fight he can't win. He could utilize his magical abilities to overpower Null. Dormammu also has all the demons of his realm at his disposal, making a terrifying army. He can also create evil beings like Satanish, for example. The thing is, that all sounds a lot like Null, and if his Sims were able to take control of Dormammu's army, Null suddenly is in a much better place. Dormammu's drawback is that he draws his power from his dimensions. When he leaves it, he gets weaker. In the event that Null and Dormammu were to face off somewhere that wasn't the dark dimension, Null does have a significantly better chance at winning, but probably only if he had like his sword and his army. Dormammu has never been killed. If you kill him, you essentially kill his dimension, which is pretty much near impossible to do, and maybe Null is the guy to finally do it. Galactus, deemed a cosmic powerhouse by Thanos and almost everyone he encounters, he could definitely hold his own against Null. Known as the Devourer of Worlds, Galactus is a cosmic being, meaning he has the power cosmic, which is just unlimited cosmic energy. Battles between Galactus and other equal powers have literally shifted reality. His main weakness is his power has to be nourished. The nourishment in question, planets, whole planets. If he doesn't eat planets, he will starve and die. He has beat mad Celestials, Null has slain a Celestial, so they're on equal footing there. Galactus is destined to be around forever and can move faster than the speed of light, despite the fact that he is like 18 tons and just under 29 feet tall. He has the power to throw devastating energy blasts, teleport, resurrect the dead, manipulate souls, mess with time. Galactus might stumble in battle since he is not immune to Null's Sims and Sword all black, as seen in alternate future Earth 14,412, but then Null was also partially defeated when Silver Surfer's surfboard, created by Galactus, was combined with Thor's hammer. Logos is three things, and they are all cosmic entities: Master Order, Lord Chaos, and the In-Betweener, who was made by Order and Chaos as their agent of universal balance. They fused together after the Beyonders destroyed the 7th form universe, creating the 8th form. The order of the universe was still being established, so where the Living Tribunal was the top of the food chain last time, that could be changed with the Reformation. Order and Chaos eliminated the tribunals so they could be the top of multiversal law. They combined together right after that so they could really be at the top, making them Logos. Like Null, they can also kill Celestials, and they did. It's assumed that Logos has unlimited power. Master Order and Lord Chaos were regarded by a gauntlet-wielding Thanos to be more powerful than Galactus. Eventually, Logos was split back into 3 pieces. They were too powerful otherwise altogether. All 3 pieces of the entity entity outrank Null, so that definitely works in their favor when it comes to a battle with them. Null is claimed to be the incarnation of the Void of Darkness, but he might just be wrong because it actually sounds like that existed long before he did. Oblivion is actually the embodiment of darkness, including the void that Null was floating in and likely what Null used to create his sword and army. This makes me wonder that if, for whatever reason, Oblivion went toe-to-toe with Null, what side would the Sims be on? Sure, there's like the hive mind stuff, but if the thing that they were literally created from joined the battlefield, would they just factory reset? Food for thought. Speaking of food, hunger, yet another entity out of time. This one, like its name suggests, eats any and all forms of matter and energy. Feeding on literally entire realities, there is little, if nothing, that can hurt this thing. As long as it understands what it is eating, its composition, then that meal can't hurt it. Hunger doesn't really have a weakness, he just can't enter a reality without a door into it. If someone were to tear the fabric of your reality, Hunger could get in and then will never leave. So as long as that happens, you're good. So to defeat Null, it seems like all one would need to do is tear into the fabric of his reality, and there we go. The only being that has ever defeated this Hunger was a Thanos that had absorbed the cosmic beings in his reality, and that was Thanos from reality 81,488. And speaking of, if the omnipotent Thanos 81,488 can absorb the living tribunal and above all others and burn Hunger up in his hand, I truly do not believe Null would cause him to break a sweat. This Thanos absorbed a bunch of other powers to get him to the point of being the embodiment of his universe, including Galactus, Death, Eternity, and Infinity, and more. This Thanos doesn't need any Infinity Stones, he can just do everything, including that of which few characters can, break the fourth wall and talk right to the readers. Somehow, there might be someone even more powerful than everyone else, the Beyonder/Beyonders. Existing outside the multiverse, they claim they were the creations of the Celestials. Really, they were created by the Lost One, who was created by the Celestials, but the Beyonders stole all his power, so there you go. Anyway, some things the Beyonders can do. A Beyonder kid created Secret Wars, that weird like gladiator match from the 80s. The Beyonders launched a coordinated attack where they all attacked the Celestials at the same time and killed all but one. The reason the Beyonders were acting up was because they wanted to destroy the multiverse to get rid of someone else and then hoped when it restarted that the guy would just be gone. So if you tried to stop them blowing up the multiverse, they had no choice but to go after you too. When the first Beyonder was introduced, he was the most powerful thing ever, able to take out entities like Lord Chaos, Master Order, Eternity, the In-Betweener, Infinity, and Living Tribunal. No matter what, Beyonders can still manipulate reality, they have the power to build entire universes at their fingertips. They can shift realities, just not time travel in the traditional sense, I guess. And finally, the one below all is likely way more powerful than Null or anyone else on this list. The one below is the other half of the one above all, the most powerful being ever. Above all creates, below all destroys, and together they are the beginning and ending of everything. Below all is a destroyer so that one day above all can recreate everything. Below all doesn't really have a brain. As the embodiment of the concept of all things destruction and darkness, it operates purely on impulse, at least that's what Bruce Banner has theorized. Below all is also easily able to warp reality. Banner has a special connection to Below all since it's the source of the gamma radiation that created the Hulk. Bruce Banner had another theory that Null was actually connected to the one below all somehow, that he were under his control or an aspect of the mindless beast. The one below all can't create, but his domain, the below place, which he controls, has spawned many an evil entity. Anti-All is one evil being that spawned from this place, and their defeat resulted in these like crystals of him scattering across the universe that then became a bunch of evil avatars of the Void. One of these essence crystal things did in fact become Null. Now we can only assume that since Null was theoretically born of Anti-All or darkness that was born of the below place, that the one below all could either control or wipe the floor with Null. That was a lot of mental gymnastics, but what do you think? A new female alternate version of a major villain has recently been introduced, which means it's time to talk about all our favorites from over the years. But we will kick things off with the new edition. Debuting in Batman Caped Crusader is Oswalda Cobblepot, the Penguin. This is definitely a turn of events since the Penguin is almost always depicted as a man. So of course, people had questions. The show's creators shared in an interview with the Emmys that they decided to do the gender swap for a few reasons. One was they were feeling a little stuck when it came to the Penguin, not really knowing what to do with the character in the show. That, combined with wanting to introduce more female villains, led to the idea of a gender swap. Apparently, after that hit the drawing board, the ideas just started flowing. Minnie Driver, who voices Oswalda, shared her excitement at the new version of the character, especially the fact that she is a mother and a psychopathic criminal at the same time. Some people aren't as happy with the change, but for the most part, people seem to be more upset that they decided to go with a name like Oswalda for the character instead of something like Odessa or related. Misery was created using Carnage and Anti-Venom, and that means she has a very, very powerful healing factor, considering the two are always trying to destroy each other. She was created by Alchemex because they wanted to weaponize the strains from the Sims they had captured. Of course, there was a scuffle that resulted in the Misery sample bonding with Liz Allen, a scientist working on the project. It made her look awesome. No way around that. Scary, but awesome. Misery is red and white and has sharp limbs coming out of her back. Her healing factor is so powerful, she is easily able to fuse herself back together after being literally cut in half. Adeline Stern is Scarecrow for Batman Beyond, that is. Stern is from Neo-Gotham, which is Gotham City but set in the not too distant future. So Bruce Wayne is alive, but he's old, and Terry McGinnis has taken over the Batman mantle. Which also means a lot of the classic Batman villains are taken over by other people. And in this case, Adeline Stern is the Scarecrow. Jonathan Crane actually kind of created her. When she was a kid, she watched her dad lose a fight to Batman, Bruce, and it was traumatizing. She received treatment, it just happened to be from one of Crane's disciples, so she actually ended up even more traumatized and hating Batman. This carried through her adult life. She viewed Batman as a demon that needed to be eradicated. Important to note, 1, Adeline's not unhinged in her day-to-day life, she's actually a news anchor. And 2, future Gotham is covered in technology. AI home systems, massive screens everywhere, it's almost impossible to not be close to some form of technology. The OG Scarecrow used fear gas, but Adeline puts a modern spin on that and instead hacks all the tech in the city, even the systems in people's houses, and has them send subliminal messages that Batman is evil. And since everyone in Gotham is surrounded by tech, it causes all of them to attack Batman at once. It's not until Bruce Wayne can jam the signal that Terry even stands a chance at winning. Adeline was very clever for using fear signals because it affected literally everyone: Gordon, Terry's brother, even Bruce Wayne. People that have intimate knowledge on how to beat Batman. At the end of the day, Adeline was a traumatized person coping in an unhealthy way and was sent to Arkham Asylum. Marvel fans had their own version of the Penguin situation back in 2018 with the shocking reveal that Doc Ock was a woman in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And honestly, it was awesome. Olivia Octavius is just as cool and ruthless and intelligent as the male version of herself. This change was welcomed by Spider-Man fans considering it was just so well done. The decision to change Otto to Olivia stemmed from real life. Co-director of the film, Rodney Rothman, shared on Twitter that co-director Bob Persichetti is friends with Kathryn Hahn, Olivia's voice actress, in real life because of their kids. And it seems that the kids had a big effect on the movie as a whole. Rothman also shared that his son was so upset Peter B didn't get to eat the bagel that he made his dad storyboard the scene for him. And sadly, it did not make it into the movie. Lady Bullseye was inspired into her life of crime by Bullseye himself. As a girl, Lady Bullseye was imprisoned and headed for bad things, but luckily Bullseye came in to save the day, slaying her captors, and in the process, inspiring her to escape and learn to become a weapon herself. As a note though, Bullseye wasn't actually there to save anyone, he was on an errand. This was a surprise side effect. Despite having no superpowers, Lady Bullseye is still a force to be reckoned with, a master of many different martial arts and skilled in weaponry. She found herself in New York while working for The Hand and framed Daredevil for a pretty serious crime. She also attacked Kingpin, taking out his family. She eventually joined the Masters of Evil West Coast and Baron Zemo's Army of Evil, so she's really building her brand here. Back in 2022, she pledged allegiance to the Punisher after he became leader of The Hand and took someone out with the power of the Beast. And according to Marvel Encyclopedia New Edition, Lady Bullseye is faster than Bullseye. Red Skull had a kid, and she took after her father. Her name is Cynthia Schmidt. Her villain name is Sin, obviously. Her dad is messed up. That is not news. He proved he is a horrible dad, though. He accelerated his daughter's growth and gave her superpowers after she spent her childhood being raised by one of his followers and indoctrinated with his ideals. He also never wanted her, so that's fun. Sin became the leader of the criminal group Sisters of Sin. They were often depicted fighting against Captain America. She was responsible for his passing in Captain America Volume 5. She also held Black Widow and Sam Wilson hostage once. Sin was recently defeated in Avengers Assemble Volume 3 Issue 1 as she literally disintegrated. She was adamant that hate would live on. All in all, the rotten apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Martha Wayne's Joker. And that's it. That's the whole sentence. In the alternate timeline known as Flashpoint, Batman's mom became the Joker and Batman's dad, Thomas, became the Caped Crusader. And that happened because the guy who ended the life of them in the main timeline ended Bruce's life in the Flashpoint timeline. Turns out Bruce's parents take his passing about as well as he took theirs, if not worse. Martha Wayne was obviously super depressed for months after the incident, and therapy wasn't working really well. And then her husband encouraged her to please move on because it had been months and he missed her smile. Maybe not the perfect thing to say to her in her state, because when Thomas was out, she gave herself a Glasgow smile so she would always be smiling, and boom, new Joker. Overall, the concept of Batman's mom being Joker is really interesting, and it makes sense now why the Batman is so reluctant to take the Joker out, even after all the terrible things they do. That has always been a point of confusion for people. The Joker is deranged and evil, so why can't Batman take him out for good? If the Joker is or was the love of his life for real, there's stakes there. Martha's Joker was equally as deranged as the Joker we are used to seeing. Kidnapping people, she attacked Batman's sidekick, ended Gordon, and eventually finds her end falling into an underground cave. Now this might be a shock, but I like Disney princesses. I know, you could probably never tell from looking at me, but all my dreams came true in Edge of Spider-Verse Volume 2 Issue 4 when they took Spider-Man characters and inserted them into a Disney fairy tale. Obviously, everybody slayed, but I really loved Fairy Godmother, aka the female fairy tale Green Goblin that has popped in to help Princess Petra get to the ball. Godmother's name is Norma, and she really only helped the princess because the goblin's crystal orb was stolen by the queen, and she wanted Petra to get it back from her mom. She gave the princess powers and also a beautiful dress that I am foaming at the mouth for, and set her on her way. 10 out of 10 story, absolutely no notes. Also featured a female version of Mysterio. It was the queen, the mysterious empress. Magneta hails from Earth 982, the one where everything pretty much happened 15 years before it did on Earth 616. Magneta is and isn't Magneto. She has the same powers as him, powers of magnetism, but she is his predecessor. Her Earth had a Magneto, but now he's out of the picture. She believed in the core of Magneto's ideas, but that his arrogance often threw everything off, so she was going to be the one with the power, charisma, and the ability to actually reach the top. She pulled together her own sisterhood of mutants and considered herself the most powerful of the new generation of heroes. Galacta has one of the oddest origins, and that is saying something when it comes to comic books. She is technically Galactus's daughter on Earth 610102, kind of. So she was a parasite, kind of like a tapeworm that manifested in Galactus, eventually growing up to be separate from him, but still a powerful cosmic being. She is like a less evil version of him since she doesn't eat planets, instead opting for consuming the non-native organisms that sneak their way onto Earth, thus protecting us from the problems that stem from invasive species, so thank you for that. She makes herself appear as a regular human teen and has helped out the Fantastic Four in the past. She eventually started growing her own parasite that made her hunger start to control her, but she proved she still wanted to be good, desperately searching for a cure, and instead finding out how she came into the world along the way. Dead Ringer can take on the form of any deceased body he touches, human or animal. Louis Dexter is a mutant who chooses to use his powers for evil. He started to remove pieces of heroes from their graves, because when he touches a deceased super person, he gets their powers. Dexter is limited to one person at a time, and if he wants to revisit the body of someone, he has to touch them again. And that's hard to do when you take decaying into account. Dead Ringer did learn how to delay transformation so he could touch a body and then just keep him in his back pocket until the right time. To make his life life easier, Dexter decided to start carrying pieces of heroes in a cigar box with him. Disgusting. I do have some questions about the threshold of this guy's power just because he hasn't appeared a lot. Could he ever become someone that regenerates? Like if someone were to be revived after he touched them, would Dexter change back into himself? I want to know. Codpiece, like many Doom Patrol villains, started out with an unserious, satirical, or just ridiculous premise, and then the writers took that and came up with a serious, genuine backstory to justify the choice. The creator of Codpiece, Rachel Pollack, was asked to do a one-shot for the Doom Patrol series. She got creative and pulled from a hero, Green Arrow. She said during an interview with Fortress Comics that she was intrigued by the idea of Green Arrow's single quiver holding dozens of different types of arrows, and thought that the absurdity of that would make a great parody villain. The adult themes in Doom Patrol then inspired the stroke of genius that was Codpiece, because that's a real accessory that has been used by men for hundreds of years for the same area as his weapon. The thing has lots of features. Most interesting to me is the retractable boxing gloves. Codpiece's serious background to justify him wearing this is one time a girl told him she didn't want to go out with him because he was short, and he's not the sharpest fork in the drawer, so he assumed she was talking about something else. Codpiece is as powerful as he is ridiculous. Calendar Man is one villain that did a full 180 in terms of his aesthetic over the years. When he was first introduced way back in 1958, he wore lots of over-the-top costumes and color. As the years went on, the character was reimagined to fit in with the modern Gotham's gritty streets. No matter what, Calendar Man is obsessed with the calendar, days of the year, the seasons. In his first appearance, Calendar Man was pretty run-of-the-mill. Most of his power just came from his costumes, like he wore a sun-themed costume and it produced heat. The 1970s gave the villain a supercharged eye. He was able to shoot lasers out of it, powerful enough to destroy the Batcopter. The most powerful version of this character is the one active today. This Calendar Man ages with the seasons, passing away in the winter and reborn in the spring. He can speed up this process by artificially speeding up the seasons, which gives everyone else weather whiplash. Calendar Man became one of the most powerful characters in the DC canon for Batman Superman issue 22. I can't say this name. It's Mr. MXYZPTLK. He gave Calendar Man a magic hat that allowed him to see outside the panels of a comic. This let him attack other characters from the past and future in the present. He was even able to erase stuff out of existence by crossing it out on the page with a pen. The villain took on Batman and Superman and nearly won that fight, but only lost due to a momentary distraction. Stained Glass Scarlet is one of my favorite Marvel villains, but even I have to admit her powers can be a little bit weird. Originally, this Moon Knight villain started out only able to form psychic bonds with people, and that would only work if the other person was on board with the procedure. With each appearance of the character, her power grew though, along with her villainous intent. After being reborn, Scarlet's body transformed to be made of stained glass, which looks really cool. Sticking with the theme, she also now controls glass, and I don't think I need to clarify why someone with the ability to throw thousands of glass shards in varying sizes would be considered powerful or dangerous. In addition to her supernatural powers, Scarlet trained in martial arts and weaponry with a special focus on the crossbow. Scarlet worked her way up in the world, starting out as a normal human woman in a tough spot, but to becoming a young god. Moon Knight issue 8 from 2022 explained that people started to worship Scarlet and tell her story, which led to her becoming a god. Ratman has haunted my nightmares since I was a child when I saw him in an episode of Martin Mystery. He is still scary to me years later, and that's a power that you can't take away. Ratman started out as Al Rizzo, and yes, that is his real name. It was 2004. Al Rizzo was a janitor for a lab. One day, a rat-based formula was spilled into a vent that just happened to lead to Al's bed. Al absorbed the formula and it mutated his body into a giant rat. He has all the abilities rats did, but now on a larger scale, so the ability to chew through anything and collapse his spine. As Ratman, Al's saliva can make people pass out, and if you're bitten by Ratman, you will also turn into a grotesque rat creature. So he went around attacking the scientists that developed the formula, turning them into rats. The hero of the show, Martin, was able to develop an antidote and turn Al Rizzo back to his human self. But even years down the road, Ratman still terrifies me and I can't look at him. Killer Frost is known for her ice powers. Now, power over cold ice, it's pretty common in the world of comics, but what makes her unique are two things. A, if she hits absolute zero, she freezes solid, technically suspended animation, and obviously she isn't immune to her own cold because why go with the option that makes sense? And B, Frost has discovered a way to freeze someone's reason, and this even worked on Superman. The cold apparently causes a brain fog that can turn the victim into Frost's pawn. Now you might be wondering why Superman didn't just use his heat vision. He did try, it's just heat doesn't have much effect on her. I mean, if her weakness is going to be extreme cold, why not make extreme heat a strength? This fight with Superman took place in DC Comics Presents 17, and with the help of fellow hero Firestorm, the pair were able to make the room so cold, Frost froze. Now this was all about the version of the villain introduced in the 1970s, but the character has been reimagined for modern audiences plenty of times in the comics and for the screen. Ego the Living Planet is really weird when you think about him too hard. There are a lot of things that we just accept as comic fans. I mean, if you don't, your sanity will be hanging on by a thread or totally gone. But when you really think about it, what do you mean there's a living planet that can read minds, or that said planet can move at almost the speed of light and devour other planets as a means of survival? That's weird when you think about it. Also, Ego once fought Alter Ego, another planet which is an eviler version of him, but just overall bizarre. Styx and Stone have very different origin stories, but are now connected for life. So Styx was homeless, and Stone was on a team of scientists doing experimental cancer research. The team of scientists were offering compensation for anyone willing to be experimented on, so Styx signed up. Stone had a theory that he was prevented from testing because it would be unethical to test. He thought that someone could become immune to cancer the same way you can become immune to snake bites. Of course, he did run the test on Styx, and of course it ended in the worst way. Styx became a walking cancer, decaying any organic matter he came in contact with. Awful outcome, but I guess Stone's theory was right. Styx was immune to cancer. Somewhere along the way, we actually don't know how it happens, but Stone turned into a big stone monster, and with that, he gained the ability to decay any inorganic matter. The combo of the two is lethal to any foe. One odd DC villain unlocks his vast power by snorting a certain brand of white stuff. He goes by Snowflame. He's a cartel leader that actually creates the white powder that he uses. Once Snowflame ingests the stuff, he is super strong, speedy, can't feel pain, or if you touch him, he's coated in the snow, so you will also be affected by the substance. He also has fire powers, if all that wasn't enough, and also because you'll need that when it comes to the process of using snow. The character is not widely loved for obvious reasons, but there is one person out there that is single-handedly keeping him afloat. In the actual canon, the character has made a few reappearances and died 3 times. The first was his first appearance against the New Guardians. He was in a shed that blew up. The second was a rebooted version of the character that met his end to a giant jaguar. And the third and current final time, instead of snorting his usual power-inducing stuff, he snorted a poison frog. An end just as chaotic as the character, which is fitting. Collective Man is so interesting to me. The villain is 5 Chinese brothers that merge into one. When they merge together, they apparently gain a connection to everyone in China. The connection allows Collective Man to draw on power from any Chinese person they want. Drawing on 10,000 people's strength gave Collective Man enough muscle to handle Sasquatch. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. The brothers almost passed from absorbing too many people's life forces at one time. The brothers also have another odd ability. They can make any Chinese person a clone of a brother and then merge with them. They have a hive mind, meaning they can mentally speak to each other, plus they can also just teleport to where their brothers happen to be. The brothers often fought the X-Men when the X-Men were in town to look into Zorn. The 5 made it very hard to do so, as they created an army of themselves to attack the X-Men.
Knightfall is the defining Batman arc of the 90s, when Bane emerged from the shadows and unleashed the full fury of Batman's formidable rogues gallery against the Dark Knight, slowly and systematically taking down Batman's defenses. Bane targeted Batman himself in Batman Volume 1, issue 497. Alone and exhausted in Wayne Manor, Batman returns home to find Bane waiting on him. With nothing left in his energy reserves, Batman wages a futile fight against his adversary that ends with Bane breaking Batman's back over his knee. Batman barely landed a single punch on his monstrous opponent, making this one of the Dark Knight's most one-sided losses in his 8-decade history. For an obsessed genius, Lex Luthor sure had fun coming up with overly complicated traps to foil Superman. One such trap involved making it necessary for Superman to need a whole new suit, and then disguising himself as the man who provides it. Hey, it even comes with an anti-kryptonite belt. It says so, right there on the belt, in case there's any doubt. But unbeknownst to Superman, Lex has actually hidden a lead-wrapped lump of kryptonite in the belt, which the incredibly gullible Superman doesn't seem to notice. Word to the wise Man of Steel, thoroughly check out all aspects of your work clothes next time. Okay, buddy? As anybody who has watched America's Funniest Home Videos knows, one sure way to get a laugh is to show a dude getting knocked in you know where. And Spider-Man learned this while fighting the villains Screwball and Jester. While Screwball live streamed the encounter, Jester took out his slingshot and sparked a solid hit right between the old spider thighs. And it didn't help that this occurred when Doc Ock had taken over Spider-Man's body, or that the humiliation continued with paint-filled balloons. Peter Parker might have dealt with such humiliation a little bit better than Doc Ock. He at least kept his cool while battling Spot, a guy who's basically a human portal, and ended up punching himself in the face. Poor Spidey. So Flash was fooled by a painting during Barry Allen's first ever outing as a superhero. So I guess in theory I should cut him some slack, but I'm not going to. See, the deal was that the fastest man alive, once again, the Flash, was being thwarted by the slowest man alive, namely Turtle Man. Sounds fun in theory, but in truth it was kinda painful to watch Barry unable to capture a guy because he kept overdoing things or not noticing he was there. But the biggest humiliation came when Turtle Man fooled Flash by simply painting a silhouette of himself on a wall. Barry thought this was the real thing, and while reaching for the shadow, smashes into the wall. Very Wile E. Coyote for a super speedster. So, as the name Avengers Disassembled implies, this was a bad point in time for almost all of the Avengers, and it certainly qualifies as one of their worst defeats. The 2004 to 2005 crossover storyline was Brian Michael Bendis' way of revamping the Avengers into a team and state that he felt was, better at the time. It featured a story that weaved between several key Avengers members and showed them at their worst. Iron Man's long-term love interest dies, so he decides to give up being the Secretary of Defense in Iron Man. Thor and the rest of the Asgardians are wiped out by a force that is supposedly the physical embodiment of Ragnarok, which they had averted numerous times before. Spider-Man, poor guy, is transformed into a spider creature loyal to the Spider Queen, Adriana. In the main Avengers storyline, they're also harmed by a mind-controlled Scarlet Witch. She summons a zombified Jack of Hearts, who explodes, a weakened Vision, who upchucks up eggs that turned into Ultron drones, and a Kree warship. Numerous heroes are killed in this conflict, including Vision, Jack of Hearts, Ant-Man, Scott, and Hawkeye. On top of that, the Avengers have their security clearance revoked, and public opinion about them has fallen. So this was a bitter defeat for the Avengers. Just Once they confront Scarlet Witch, she sends wave after wave of artificially created constructs until Doctor Strange puts her into a coma. Not a good one all around. The humiliation from the defeat of Gorilla Grodd publicly capturing the League stems from the fact that it came about due to the League's own faults. So in this story, Gorilla sets up the secret society with the intention to prey on the League's weaknesses. After the members got hot-headed over how they didn't need the others, Grodd made his move by capturing each member individually. And in order to rub it in the faces of the public at large, Grodd had the heroes strapped up and encased in pods for everybody to see. So not only were they handily, taken out earlier, they were also made to look really stupid. It took the Martian Manhunter's shapeshifting to save the League from further embarrassment by freeing them. 13 years ago, Peter Parker was on a school field trip to a science lab. There, a spider got a large dose of radioactivity, dying for life. Spider bit Peter on the hand. We all know this. I know we all know this. But what we don't know is something else happened too. In this case, the spider didn't die right away. Instead, it crawled on the floor, bit a young dark-haired girl near the ankle, and that's how we got Silk. And she is Spider-Man's original sin. After being dead for a while, having Doc Ock in his body, Peter's like, hey, I'm gonna go out and fight some crime. This is Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 3, Issue 1. The Menagerie, a new crime team. We've got White Rabbit, Skeen, Hippo, and new villainous Panda Mania. They're going on a rampage, stealing very expensive eggs in an auction heist. A man nearly falls over onto a little one, but his fall is broken by Spider-Man. White Rabbit starts firing at him, but Spider-Man defeats her, takes the eggs back, webs them to safety. Hippo throws a car at Spidey, claiming the eggs would secure his future, but Spider-Man's like, hey, we're already in the future. And then somebody else is like, hey, old Spidey's back. They realize something, and this is where the point is, folks. Outside of his mask, web shooters, and the web around his nether regions, Spider-Man is completely in the nude. Thankfully, he's able to keep his mask on before his identity is revealed, but his dignity didn't have the same fate. Peter defeats all 4 villains before being chased off by angry civilians, and gets home and is like, okay, that wasn't half bad. Let's keep going, folks. In the Cadmus arc of Justice League Unlimited, Lex Luthor devised a plan to discredit Superman by running a presidential campaign and feigning an act of having reformed. Bit by bit, Superman's allies turn on him, especially after Lex causes the Justice League Watchtower's death ray to fire on Earth. The humiliating portion was during Lex's unveiling of a new city, making Superman believe he'd planted an explosive underneath. With Shazam favoring Lex, he and Superman engaged in a fight that completely leveled the city. After realizing Lex had fooled him and there was no explosive, the Justice League is discredited in the eyes of the public, and the public is calling for their surrender to the government. Oops. One of the most embarrassing ways to lose to your arch nemesis would have to be doing so on your own turf. And during the Under Siege, readers got to see exactly that. The Masters of Evil have been the antithesis of the Avengers since they premiered in the Avengers issue 6 in 1964. They were assembled by Captain America foe Baron Heinrich Zemo, who was tired of always losing to Captain America and kind of not a fan of the formation of the Avengers. Later, his son would pull together another incarnation of the Masters of Evil, made up of others who were tired of being defeated by the Avengers. This time, fueled purely by revenge, they avoided the big evil plan and just invaded Avengers Mansion while the Avengers were out. From there, things had to get worse for the Avengers before they could get better. Zemo and the Masters laid waste to the mansion and tormented Jarvis while Captain America watched. They even managed to get one over on Hercules, within an inch of his life, using a combination of manipulation and raw power. The Avengers had to regroup and call in some backup before they were able to retake their own mansion. But for quite some time there, the Masters won. They took the Avengers home from them and trashed it, while mercilessly harming several people they cared about. In Justice League issue number 69, during which the backup squad was known as Justice League International, Doomsday went out to cause huge levels of destruction. After breaking free from his prison, Doomsday rampaged through the countryside and suburbs on a collision course with Metropolis. But before Superman could swoop in and save the day, the Justice League tracked the monster down and came face to face with a force the likes of which they had never battled before. On this occasion, the monster was mostly in a subdued state, with one hand even behind his back. But yet, Doomsday steamrolled through Justice League International in what was even acknowledged in the comic book itself as an embarrassing defeat. Not only did they lose, but the defeat was in such fashion that the Justice League International's name was permanently soured. Khonshu is a member of the Ennead, the Heliopolitan race of gods that were worshipped by the people of ancient Egypt. He is the god of the moon, who also prided himself in being the protector of travelers in the night. Not being able to enter the earthly plane, Khonshu has picked countless champions throughout history to work as an avatar and be guided by his will. He can manipulate mystic energies for supernatural effects, such as, simple little things, interdimensional teleportation, telepathy, healing the injured, resurrection, earthquakes, and I'm forgetting something. Oh right, granting superhuman powers to mortal beings. He can also steal the power of other magical heroes and store them in Ankhs. At one point, I think he managed to get a hold of the powers of Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, and even the Sorcerer Supreme himself, Doctor Strange. Khonshu possesses superhuman durability that allows him to withstand unspecified levels of injury. So yes, while it is possible to injure this god, his healing factor is completely out there. So good. He can control moon rocks and everything that is made out of them, such as, a little thing known as Mjolnir, which is made of Uru, the remnants of a dead celestial body. Now, while Khonshu doesn't wield any weapons of his own, he's bestowed power upon at least several over time, making him quite the threat. X-23 has always been one of the most popular mutants in Marvel ever since her introduction, so it only makes sense that she has a villain of her own. And this is where Haymaker comes in, an interesting villain for a couple of reasons. But one of the most notable is that Jordan Gaston is non-binary, allowing for representation to burst into comics for heroes and villains alike. But what makes Haymaker a great villain is not only their past as a martial arts fighter that was injected with the mutant growth hormone, but the fact that they personally have a bone to pick with Laura Kinney, since she offed their brother years ago. Not only is Haymaker a great fighter, but they also have grenades that can depower mutants, evening the odds against X-23. With Lex Luthor behind bars yet again, it's time for Superman to face a new foe. But what could be worse than Luthor? But a man who despises both the Man of Steel and Lex equally? Graft was introduced in the first issue and his plans are still unfolding. An old enemy to Lex, but a new adversary to Superman, Graft is an intelligent villain who has tried to bring Metropolis to its knees. In issue number 4, it is revealed that they are using Kryptonian science to enhance Superman's foes, which makes any attack incredibly specific to Superman on both a physical and cultural level. Quite frankly, the doctors have turned the worst parts of Krypton's legacy against Superman, because these are things that have already caused him harm before, and this experimentation only makes things more dangerous. And it's proof that somebody's not above making deep cuts to destroy their enemies, and their success thus far means Superman is going to need all the help he can to stop them. As the leader of the assumed secret order of mad scientists, Graft has been tinkering and upgrading a lot of villains. We're talking Parasite, and dissecting familiar faces like Bizarro, tomorrow. The experiments are far from over, and Superman is still preparing for what Graft throws at him and the Super Corps next. But what is known is that this villainous genius is not done, and that's scary. Red Mask is technically an original character, even if his ties to the Joker are a little too close for comfort to me. Darwin Halliday may have been a great chemist and the CEO of Halliday Industries, but his constant strive to fix the emptiness within caused him to become the Joker in a parallel universe. And ever since, Darwin has been obsessed with recreating multiversal experiments to drive himself to the same madness that created the Joker, so that he could be free of limitations. Now, Darwin has realized he could never become the Joker, but he's determined. And with a villain like this, creating new Jokers for realities where Joker does not exist, has not been created yet, or is dead, there is much to fear, providing Batman and readers with a fearsome proto-Joker that leads Batman to hop through the multiverse, encountering other Batmen. The Lazarus Reign saw many new heroes and villains arrive on the scene, with one of them being Christopher Lake, assuming the identity of Insomnia. Now, Insomnia first appears in Dawn of DC, Night Terror Special Edition, and this is where we get our first glimpse of this villain that can summon dreams, conjure illusions of others, travel between the real world and the nightmare realm, and alter his physical appearance while in the nightmare realm. This powerful being had the power to invade and trap heroes and villains within twisted amalgamations of their own nightmares, keeping them suspended in the frightening realities of the creations they conjured in their sleep. Do you know how terrifying that is? Insomnia has made for a great horror-themed villain with a grudge against the Justice League for their failure to save his family during the Dark Knight's Metal incident. So with Insomnia at the helm of villainy, this monster has nothing left to lose, and nothing but hatred for heroes as he terrorizes others within their own minds. Like, get out of there, my mind's already awful enough to me. Thank you. Technically, Gorgon died in X of Swords, but bear with me here. This was after joining the mutant nation of Krakoa, becoming one of its captains, but before that they were a very reliable villain. They're a mutant with telepathy, transmutation, superhuman physical attributes, also a polymath genius, and extremely skilled hand-to-hand combatant, even leading the hand for a period of time. Gorgon made quite the impact during his debut, and at the end of the day, his strongest feat remains his fist. He was able to sneak up on Wolverine completely undetected and kill him with one strike, piercing his lungs, so he constantly was just like Look, Wolverine is ridiculously hard to hurt, and it takes expert knowledge of anatomy, skill, and strength to overcome his adamantium skeleton and healing factor. And also his senses make it almost impossible for you to get the drop on him. I don't know, I think Gorgon might be coming back. I know, it's a bit of a stretch, but like, I'm sensing it, folks. Most DC comic supervillains usually get one honest attempt at contesting against a superhero, and while they might reciprocate, their original ambiance of dread might not be as substantial. But that wasn't the case with Vandal Savage. First appearing in Green Lantern issue number 10, Savage was a Cro-Magnon era warrior who gained immortality after finding a mysterious asteroid. And for 50,000 years, Savage would battle many DC heroes, and each encounter would always leave massive destruction in his wake. You don't want to overlook that. The Orchis Initiative is Krakoa's greatest threat. The Anti-Mutant Coalition is composed of the best minds from multiple secret organizations working together to destroy the mutant nation, and Nimrod is their greatest creation. Familiar to longtime fans of the X-Men, a Nimrod unit is the ultimate sentinel and usually can only be created with technology from the distant future. So Nimrod has proven to be a powerful addition to Orchis' arsenal, despite not being the most well-known villain. By the way, Nimrod has also pulled off a pretty impressive feat of his own. He and Omega Sentinel went head-to-head with Magneto and Xavier. Nimrod has always been incredible, but seeing him dismantle two of Krakoa's strongest mutants really showed just how dangerous he can be. Another dead one, I know folks, but like, bear with me here. The Apocalypse twins were the offspring of Archangel and the Final Horseman, Pestilence, and when they were younger, they were stolen by Kang the Conqueror, who had them raised in an anti-mutant situation in an alternate future controlled by the Red Onslaught. And they grew up in the most brutal environment imaginable, so they would be powerful enough for schemes. However, they were like, no, we're gonna use our powers to break your hold on us. Then they raided Kang's trophy room, took the axe that Thor had used before he was worthy of Mjolnir, and posing as Loki, Kang had tricked Thor into enchanting it so it could pierce celestial armor, making it a very powerful weapon. So the twins were able to get the drop on a celestial and survived long enough to get in close and kill the cosmic god using the axe. They also planned a mutant rapture. I just can't stress this enough. Like, they stole a weapon that can cut celestial armor from a trophy room to kill somebody, and sending the Celestials to destroy Earth and indirectly all of Earth's futures. And then to ensure their success, they used life and death seeds from the Gardener to create the 4 Horsemen of Death and a lot more. They also had the Scarlet Witch bring all mutants to the Aqaba Ark, sparing them from celestial judgment so they could be delivered to a new paradise. And they're also characters characters that I think are going to come back. So it's not always common for a villain to be a true pound for pound equivalent to a hero, not just in strength but also in intelligence, cunningness, and drive to achieve their goals. But for Batman, I think Prometheus is his sinister reflection. So with Prometheus, after his criminal parents were killed, he underwent an odyssey remarkably similar to that of Bruce Wayne's. Both a pinnacle in condition and intelligence, Prometheus is a bit of a scourge and ravager upon DC's heroes.